Welcome to English 112. Your screen is not misleading you. This says English 111 Introductory Unit Notes about the Academic Paper Form. As a matter of course, I like to spend the first week of English 112 reviewing what was learned in English 111, just to touch base and to make sure we're all on the same page, because all instructors here kind of teach and talk about these writing or composition tasks using similar yet sometimes different terms. And the way I write about them, the way I speak about them, they're all going to be consistent with what you see on this particular document from week 1, which is Introductory Unit Notes about the Academic Paper Form. So I just wanted to go through the first few pages of this one in this first video, just as I would in my standard face-to-face classes. So what you're going to see here are a few lessons, but just an overview of the form. So here we go. Lesson 1, the 5-paragraph essay form isn't always appropriate for the papers that you're going to be writing this semester. I have found in English 111 that students who are transitioning from high school to college tend to come in with the misconception that every paper they ever write should be written in 5 paragraphs, which is to say, an introduction, 3 body paragraphs that each contain a supporting idea, and a conclusion. In shorter papers, this can be appropriate, or in situations like when you have a limited amount of time to write an essay, like in a test, where you have to write an essay in 30 or 40 minutes. The 5-paragraph essay can be very useful in those situations. But as you progress through your academic career, you're going to find that these longer papers require more supporting ideas, more elaborate and extended discussion that comes in the form of a longer body that contains more than 3 supporting ideas, more than 3 paragraphs. So the first lesson I think we need to learn is that these lengthier papers are going to require more than 3 paragraphs. And an extension of lesson 1 is extension 2. Let content dictate form. Let the paper's topic inform how you will break paragraphs or outline the discussion that you're attempting to write in this paper you've been asked to write for whatever course, including this one. So the idea there is you let the information, you let the content tell you how many paragraphs you're going to need, or how long this paragraph needs to be. You don't sort of force some sort of arbitrary rule. So moving through our notes here, this first page is just kind of a general overview of the parts of the paper, which is sort of the whole deal with English 111. You're supposed to learn how to write a generic academic paper that any college instructor would recognize as being well written, with clearly articulated ideas, using the facets of the form like intro, body and conclusion, and text citation, following MLA guidelines. You're supposed to learn all those things in 111, but I start 111 by talking about the parts of the paper. So I'm going to run through these real quick and just give you some small insights. Number 1, the introduction is the first paragraph. It opens the discussion. And what material do I need to get me to the thesis statement is a question I tend to ask myself when I'm writing an introduction. We're going to talk more about that on the next page. So I'm going to just keep rolling through these. Number 2, your thesis statement is an all-encompassing statement about the paper's topic. It should make an arguable claim, because a statement of fact doesn't need discussion. For example, if I were to say, Tyler is a student in English 111, well, that doesn't really need a discussion or a paper to prove. It's just a statement of fact. But if I were to say that Tyler is the best writer in English 111, well, then that would require some type of criteria. I would need to break that discussion down. I might have a paragraph about how Tyler took English AP in high school, and how Tyler has done very well, or has been reading a lot as a child, and he already has the capacity to emulate those good habits of writing that he's been reading for years, and so forth. So I have different ideas, different supporting ideas for different paragraphs, laying out the criteria to support that particular arguable claim. The bulk of the paper, of course, is number 3, the body, the meat or material of the discussion or conversation, and you need separate paragraphs for separate ideas. Taking a sort of a microscopic look at the body paragraph, number 4, the first sentence of a paragraph should be your topic sentence. Topic sentence makes a claim to support the thesis, and it directly addresses that paragraph's content. Since we have more about that in a later page, I'm just going to keep moving on. Number 5, tie-ins might be something you haven't thought about or had been taught. Tie-ins are the last sentences of paragraphs, and they can be very useful to kind of wrap up the point that that paragraph was trying to make. And they call them tie-ins because they can kind of tie back in with the thesis that was in the introduction paragraph. And it really is it's a chance to remind the reader that, hey, here's what we're even talking about, and here's how this one little idea supports the bigger idea of the paper. Number 6, early body. Sometimes your first body paragraph, it can be useful to educate the reader and give them some basic information or some context. So I say, occasionally you might find it's best not to just jump right on into the argument you're trying to write if you're writing an argumentative paper. Perhaps it's a good time to provide some context or preliminary information to educate or familiarize your reader with the topic at hand. Number 7, of course, is a conclusion. Conclusion sort of boils the whole discussion down to a few takeaways. Sometimes it can be difficult not to just repeat everything you've already said, but your conclusion needs to sort of take things a step further. Number 8, works cited. Modern Language Association, or MLA, gives us guidelines for how to format papers and document our sources. The works cited page, of course, is the last page of the paper, and it is a compiled list of sources that you used and cited within the paper. So I'm sure everyone knows that, but we're going to be looking a little bit deeper into how to do that effectively, because their students tend to have a lot of problems with following MLA guidelines carefully. Number 9, when you get inside the paper and you're integrating others' ideas and words within the body of the paper, you have to have number 9 and number 10, and too often students are likely to forget one or both of these. Number 9, you need in-text citation, also called parenthetical documentation, and you need number 10, attribution, or I'll probably be calling it this semester signal phrases. A signal phrase is pretty simple. It's just when you say, your author said this, or this publication had this to say, and then you integrate the source that you have read. And then when you're finished integrating that content, in parentheses, you will have either the author's last name, or you might have the article title in direct quotations if no author's name has been given. So other lessons from this sort of introductory page here. Lesson 3, the nature of academic prose writing, A, revolves around its central idea, the primary objective. B, it is highly prescriptive in its structure, meaning there are kind of a lot of rules. And C, it's kind of repetitive. Now that you know that the nature of this form has the tendency to be repetitive, you must meet this challenge by producing writing that doesn't feel redundant. And why I say it's repetitive? Well, if you think of it this way, an introduction kind of tells the reader what you're about to tell them. A thesis statement tells in a more precise and specific way what you're about to tell them. A topic sentence tells the reader what the next paragraph's about to tell them. A tie-in tells the reader what you just told them and tells them how that fits the grander scheme that is made clear in the thesis. And so forth till you get to the conclusion that says, now tell us why you told us and tell us what you told us. So as you can see, there's a lot of sort of syncing the writing together so that you create a sort of cohesive unit. And the point of all this, Lesson 3B, the form exists this way. The form of academic prose is this way because it aids A, in the comprehension of information, helps you understand it, and B, the retention of information helps you remember it. With all these rules, if we're doing all these things precisely, and we're all on the same page about how to do this, this is going to meet your professors or your instructors' expectations for how a paper ought to be formed, how it ought to be written. And in English 111, hopefully you've become better at all of the parts of the paper. And, I'm going to be helping you with the form this semester, just as your instructor helped you in English 111. But this year in English 112, we're really going to be focusing on successfully integrating source material, writing a research paper, in other words, and how to document things properly, and of course getting into differences in the writing and research in the disciplines.